Hey, this is Ron Keel, the metal cowboy and host of the Streets of Rock and Roll radio show.
This is Zach Wild, Black Label Society.
Hey, this is Sebastian Bach.
Hey, this is Jeff Tate of Queensryche.
Hey, this is Bruce Kulick.
Hey, this is Michael Anthony from Van Halen, Chickenfoot, and all points in between. And you and I are both here listening to The Shoe.
The Shoe!
The Shoe.
To The Shoe.
You're listening to The Shoe.
With the best guy I know. The best young guy I know, for sure.
Miles Schumann, crank it up!
Miles the Shoe Schumann, 14-year-old rock and roll radio host, bringing you my first ever show on the CMS radio network. I've got a great show for all of you. Today, first off, I have Mr. Michael Anthony from Chickenfoot and Van Halen joining me on the phone. And then my guest co-host for the night, Mr. Teddy Zigzag Andreadis from Guns N' Roses. There won't be a lot of music played on this specific show tonight because we're going to be talking the rock a lot of the time. I'm very excited, so let's get right on into it because Michael Anthony is calling in. How you doing, Michael?
I'm doing good, Miles. How you doing? It's an honor to be the first guy here broadcasting this huge stereophonic sound of yours here.
Yeah, you know, I couldn't think of anybody else better to have as my first guest on the new show. And I got to meet you at the NAMM show. I know your tech Dugie pretty well, and he let me cut the line and come meet you, and it was perfect.
Wait, he let you cut in line?
Yeah, he let me cut the line.
Okay, he's that's grounds for termination.
He told me that you've been saying that for the past 30 years now.
Oh, he told you? Yeah, I like to keep him wondering, you know, when it's actually going to happen.
Well, Michael, there's so much to talk about in such a short period of time, but I want to start with this question. You were such a key part of Van Halen and still are, obviously, but is it weird to think that you're not in the band anymore?
Well, just like anything else, you know, as years go on with relationships or whatever, you know, certain things happen, and certain things happen sometimes that are beyond your control, and, you know, just the turn of events that happened. I mean, in the beginning, yeah, it was kind of, when I heard that they were putting a tour together and Ed's Kid Wolfie was doing it, and I found out kind of like when everybody else found out, over the internet or whatever. It was kind of strange. Actually, the only thing that was kind of strange and actually kind of hurt a bit was when they put their new website up back then, and they kind of took my picture off of everything, like the album covers and stuff like that. And I think a lot of the fans, I got to thank them again. They raised their voices, and that happened for like half a day, and then they changed that. They changed it back. So I don't know if somebody was trying to erase the memory of me ever being in the band, or I don't know what they were thinking. But I mean, you know, it's like you always think that something like that, and as great as it was, will last forever, and sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't.
You can't take Michael Anthony off of the album covers of Van Halen. Did they really do that?
Yeah, there was a website that they'd come up with with their brand new website. I think this was back in like 2007 or something like that. And on the sides of the website, you could see like the album covers, and they actually kind of blocked me off of a couple of the album covers that I was on the cover of, you know.
Okay.
Which was kind of interesting. That was the one thing that I had noticed, and I thought that was actually kind of hurt a little bit, that, you know, they would try to, you know, or whoever was the one that masterminded that would try to, make it appear that I was never in the band. But a lot of the fans obviously noticed too, because then it got changed right back. They had the same album covers, but I was on the cover again.
Now, when they took you off of them, they didn't put Wolfie on the album covers, did they?
I don't know. I seem to think that on the very first album cover, there was some kind of, because you couldn't see the album covers really clearly. They were kind of like ghosting on the sides of the website, and it did appear that it almost looked like they had Wolfie in my spot on the first album cover. I can't say for sure, but
wow,
you know. But you know, hey, it's whatever it is, you know.
Yeah, and Mike, I've heard you say things in interviews in the past where, you know, you say that you wish Wolfie the best of luck and things like that. And you're really taking the high road on this, it seems like, because I've seen situations where other people will say, you know, that's my place in the band. They're trying to replace me. and something like that and make a big deal out of it, but it seems like, you're really being the bigger man about it.
Yeah, there's been other bands in the past where a band member either quits or is ousted or whatever, and they're bitter about it for the rest of their life or for a long time, and it's like, what happened, and it doesn't do any good for me to sit and bitch and complain or whatever, and I just gotta you just move on, and I for me personally, it seems like a waste of time for me to just sit there, especially in the press.
Sure.
Man, I mean, there were great years. Was a great time being in the band, and in fact, I played with Sammy and Chickenfoot, and I talk with him all the time, and and we reminisce about Van Halen. We like to think about the good times of the band, and that's what I would like to think about, not about any of the drama. And,
right.
To me, it just seems like a waste of time to sit there and complain about it,
right.
Not being in the band, that's my spot or whatever. The fans know, and the fans will make their own assumption about the whole thing. And for me, I just, I'm not going to crawl into a corner and just sit there. I moved on.
Okay, now here's something that'll be kind of interesting to hear your answer to. And I'm sure you've been asked this before, but I still want to hear the answer. All right, okay, so it's no secret that you are very close with Sammy. Obviously, you play in Chickenfoot with him now. But friendship with Sammy aside, say you could only choose one. What's your favorite? The Sammy Hagar era or the David Lee Roth era of Van Halen?
How come we didn't bring up the Gary Cherone era? Well, you know what? It's I get asked that question. Well, not as much now, but I mean, I get asked that question. I've been asked that a zillion times. And I tell everybody, I'll tell you basically the same thing. I think both bands that were valid bands, and they had great points to them. With Dave, there was a lot of cutting edge stuff that back then when we first came out, and obviously. Shoot, Dave, everybody from Vince Neil to Bret Michaels wanted to be like him. They were all looking like him,
Right.
Sebastian Bach, I can name you, a ton of singers, bands that spotted singers wanted to be him, and all the guitarists wanted to be Eddie. And, on the music that we were playing, I think people deemed it a little more like party type music or whatever. I mean, we were always serious about the music, and I thought the stuff we were doing then was great. And then when Sammy joined the band, I think musically, more than anything else, we kind of took it to another plateau because with Sammy being a great musician himself, I mean, plays guitar, lead guitar, he's no slouch, and a great singer, that he just added a whole nother thing. I remember Eddie saying when Sammy first joined the band that Eddie said that he can play anything that he wants now, that he doesn't have to worry about Sammy not being able to sing it, So, but, I think both eras, were great eras of the band.
And the Gary Cherone era, of course.
And then there was the Gary Cherone era. I dearly love Gary, and Gary, just briefly, I'll just mention this, that Gary stepped into the band at a very volatile time, a very bad time for anybody to join Van Halen. Our drummer Alex was going through a very nasty divorce, and there was just a lot of things going on, and here was Gary was thrown into this, and he was kind of like, almost like the innocent victim in all of this. And the one thing that Gary, that was great though, that when we went on tour with him in '98, that he had he wasn't opposed at all to doing any of the early Roth stuff, and it was great because then we played a lot of the stuff that we hadn't played for quite a few years when Gary went out with us, and that was, to me, that was a lot of fun doing that.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously Gary Cherone's not going to be Sammy Hagar or David Lee Roth, and there's nothing he can do about that, but as long as he can sing the songs and do a good job at it, why not?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it's probably a shame for a lot of fans now that, when Van Halen went out on their last tour, that they're obviously not doing any Sammy era stuff.
Right.
And, I can tell you that probably one of the main reasons because Dave can't sing that stuff.
Right.
His register can't sing it, but it sucks that fans, if they want to hear any of that Sammy era stuff, the only time they're going to hear it now is if Sammy and I go out and play it.
Yeah, and
and even though we're half the band, they won't hear Van Halen actually play any of that stuff.
Now in Chickenfoot, do you guys play any of that Van Halen stuff?
You know what? We hadn't yet because in Chickenfoot, one of the main things that we wanted to do when we first formed the band, which, by the way, was just out of jamming together, and all we wanted to do was just get together and play some music, and no egos, no money trip, no nothing, just have a good time playing music. We wanted to, when we decided that we were going to do an album and then also go out and tour, the easy thing to do would be to stick in some Sammy stuff or Joe stuff or Chili Peppers or Van Halen, and we wanted Chickenfoot to stand alone on its own merit, on the band's own merit, and that's why, especially the first tour, we decided that we wouldn't play any music from any of our, any of the members' past bands or bands that we're in now, only because we wanted people to hear Chickenfoot, not Van Halen or whatever, and of course, if you play Van Halen or whatever, then you're going to open up this whole can of worms. Everyone's going to start comparing Joe Satriani, Eddie Van Halen playing Van Halen and stuff. We didn't want any of that. We played a couple of, if we ventured on, did a couple of songs. We did Foxy Lady by Hendrix. We did Highway Star by Deep Purple. When we come out, we'd do an encore. We'd play maybe a song or two from bands that we grew up listening to, and kept it all very neutral as far as that goes. Now, who's to say in the future here, because we're still on a little bit of a hold with Chickenfoot because Chad's still working with his other band right now, and we're going to wait for Chad. We're going to wait for him because we don't want to do anything without Chad. That we might stick one in at some point in the future, but we wanted to make sure that Chickenfoot was established as its own band.
Yeah, and now you just mentioned that Chad Smith's still out there doing his thing with the Red Hot Chili Peppers, but wasn't Kenny Aronoff filling in for him for a while? Was that not working out or something?
Well, no, it totally worked out, and it was because Chad did the second album, or the third album, whatever you want to call it, with us, and then the Chili Peppers got busy, and we all knew that that's his main priority, and everyone's good with that, because everybody this is like. Just a fun thing that we do, and if the schedules don't allow it, we don't do it at that time. And we were thinking about going on tour at the time, and all of a sudden the Chili Peppers were starting to get busy in the studio and stuff like that too. And so we all knew that Chad might not be able to do anything. For some reason at that time, we still want to go out and play some shows. And actually, Kenny was suggested by Chad. Kenny and Chad are good friends, and so we went out and we toured like that, and it wasn't like Kenny was in the band, but he came out and did the live thing with us, but we really didn't have any intention on of Kenny coming in and doing like the next studio record with the band.
Okay.
We knew, and Chad knew that we would wait for him. Because it is Chickenfoot. We're not like any kind of a revolving door band where if the drummer can't make it, we'll bring in another drummer. If the guitarist can't make it, we'll bring in another guitarist. There's 4 strong identities in this band, Chickenfoot, and hopefully everybody was satisfied when Kenny came out and played live with us. I mean, he's obviously a great drummer, but Chickenfoot is Joe, Sammy, Chad, and Mike. So.
Yeah, and while we're talking about Chad Smith a bit. I wanted to ask you, because obviously the whole thing where the Chili Peppers played the Super Bowl just happened, and everybody's making a big deal at the fact that I guess they weren't actually playing. There were pre-recorded backing tracks. And I want to know, do you think that that's such a big deal, as big a deal as everybody else is making it sound? And also, have you ever been in a situation like that where you've been on a TV show or something and asked to play with pre-recorded tracks?
You know what? I don't think it's as big a deal if people know it's going to happen, Now, for whatever reason, that they had the pre-recorded music at the Super Bowl. Maybe this decision was made because it was so cold, back east there. When they did it, that it's tough to play your instrument when it's cold like that. Now, I did hear that the vocals were live though during that show.
Oh, okay.
So Anthony was singing. We've done a couple of things in the past, especially early on in Europe with Dave, where we've done TV shows where they want us to do a lip sync type thing. And I'll tell you, back then Dave was the worst at lip syncing because he could never do it right. You could always blatantly tell that he wasn't actually singing because he could not do it quite in time with the actual song, which is kind of funny.
Right.
But I think as long as people don't try to fool the audience or fool their fans into thinking that they're actually playing live, when it's like, when they blatantly would actually know that you're not doing it,
Right.
It's kind of like the whole Britney Spears type thing. Here she is dancing around the stage, working up a big sweat or whatever, but when she's singing, she's singing perfect, just like the record.
Right.
Well, that doesn't happen, Miles, right?
Right.
And I think as long as you don't try to fool your audience with something like that, it's okay to do. Sometimes, possibly, like I said, with the Super Bowl, maybe it was unavoidable,
Right. Now, I want to go back to some of the Van Halen stuff, and then we're going to get into some of the other stuff later. But I wanted to ask you, a few years ago, you guys were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but you and Sammy were the only two members of Van Halen being inducted that showed up. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and so...
Go ahead.
So, I want to know, just because I figure it's good to get your opinion on some of these things, Kiss is having some of the same problems. They're being inducted this year, and Gene Simmons obviously discovered Van Halen. If one of the Kiss members were listening to this show right now, what kind of advice would you give them about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, reflecting on your own experiences when you guys were inducted?
Well, the whole thing with us being inducted in the Hall of Fame, obviously, besides being one of the greatest moments in my career, because that's something that, you're voted on by your peers and everything.
Right.
And there was no way that I was going to miss, being there. And I heard originally that Dave was going to be there. Originally everyone was going to be there. But for whatever reason, and I'm not going to, point fingers or make my own assumption on it. But, it turned out to be a pretty bittersweet type thing because, Sammy and I remember we were sitting at our table and REM was playing after they accepted their award. And I turned to Sammy and I said, God, if the whole band would have been here, we would have just kicked their asses. It would have been an induction that they would have never have forgotten, Sorry to say that it was never to be, but when you look at bands like Metallica, obviously Cliff Burton passed away, so he wasn't there, but they had Trujillo there, and also Jason Newsted was there and played too, and that's the only thing that I don't know what angle that Kiss is trying to play it from, because obviously they've got Ace and Peter. And maybe too many people dressed up the same. I don't know. I mean, if I would have done it, if I were those guys, I would have came out and obviously they probably wanted to do their whole thing in their full makeup and whatever. But obviously, the big years where Kiss really made their big impression on the world or whatever was with Ace Frehley and Peter Criss. So
yeah,
it's like. How can you ignore something like that? It's like...
Oh, yeah, I agree completely.
And, for me, to me, I think the thing for them to do would come out with the original band with just all gun barrels blazing,
Well, I agree, Michael, but according to Gene and Paul, no lineups of Kiss are going to be playing now, so...
Well, yeah, that's how you avoid the whole...
Yeah.
Mess with the new guys and the old guys,
Exactly.
And obviously, because with the makeup and everything, they, what do? Do you play without the makeup, with the makeup? Who doesn't wear the makeup? Who wears the makeup?
It's a mess.
It can be a pretty sticky. Yeah, it can be a pretty big mess. And I personally, I feel that's how they got out of it. They just figured they weren't going to play at all.
Right.
Now,
And
me personally, I would have liked to have seen the original band come out there like I remembered them growing up.
Yeah, I'd love to see the original lineup of Kiss, and I'm sure a lot of people felt that same way when the other guys in Van Halen didn't show up.
Yeah, it was strange. Sam and I, we played with Paul Schaefer's the musical director when we did it, and we played with his band, and it was okay, but it was not. To me, it was like, yeah, okay, but it wasn't wasn't anything special, you know. We were just getting up there playing a Van Halen song, you know.
Yeah.
And then when Slash and the guys got up there and played, it was like they kind of like, you know, they were just kind of jamming our stuff, you know. So it wasn't like anybody really got, you know, a dose of Van Halen because the band wasn't there, you know. And that was the thing that kind of like was too bad to see, you know, because it was such a great event, you know. And we had Sam and I had a great time that night. I mean, I had my wife and my kids there. I mean, it was a great time. It would have been that much better if everybody would have been there. And I'm sure Sammy obviously would have been gracious enough if Dave showed up and everybody would have played. So like I told you, like with Metallica or, you know, other bands where, you know, past members come up and play too, you know, like the Chili Peppers, they did the same thing. And, you know.
Yeah, and I'm just curious to know, say the Van Halen camp were to call you up and say, you know, we're willing to put all differences aside and do a reunion tour. We want to reunite with you and Dave and have the original lineup go out. What would it take for you to agree to do that and go out on the tour with the original lineup of Van Halen? Like, you know, what would it take for you?
The only thing that it would take for me would be for everything to be equal and on the up and up, and you know, no ego trips and no drama. You know, I'd totally be in. And I've actually, or Sammy's actually mentioned to me before too. He said that, hey, if that happened or whatever, he says you got my blessing to do it. You know, not that I would need his blessing to do it, but I mean that's all it would take for me. You know. I don't sit around and think about it anymore. You know,
right?
If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, then it doesn't. You know.
Sure.
But you know, just if everything was just like I said, equal and on the up and up, and you know, sure, I'd be right there.
All right. Well, that doesn't sound like it's too hard to work out. So I mean, if everybody could just put their differences aside, I think that could really be something great. You know, I'm personally a fan more of the Sammy Hagar stuff because the first Van Halen song I ever heard was Pound Cake, and then I went back and learned some of the stuff prior to that, or before that, you know, the Dave stuff. But, you know, it really could be something amazing. And obviously fans who are fans of the Sammy stuff get to see a half of Van Halen, meaning you and Sammy, in Chickenfoot.
And Sammy, he's not, I mean... Shoot, why not doing a reunion tour or something like that with both guys?
That'd be cool.
You know, and you know, rather than do like a Dave set and then a Sammy set, just trade off.
Yeah, I would love to see that happen.
Dave songs and do a couple Sammy songs and you know, God, it would be huge.
It would be very
but,
very
you know,
huge.
Unfortunately, there's probably people that can't get everything in check to make that happen. So.
Right. Now, going back to the Chickenfoot stuff, if you could give a rough estimate of when Chad's going to be done with the Chili Peppers and Chickenfoot can get back out there on the road, when are we thinking? Just a rough estimate.
Oh, boy, you know, your guess is as good as mine, Miles, you know.
Yeah.
I just found out that they're going to be doing some dates in South America. So I know they've been when they tour, they go out and they tour for quite a while.
Right.
So you know, we really can't speculate. We thought it might happen the first part of this year, like last month, February, but it didn't. So you know, we'll just kind of wait, and everybody's kind of, you know, just doing their own thing, and it's really kind of hard to speculate right now. You know, when that would happen, you know, because if it doesn't happen leading up to the summer, then it's probably going to be sometime in the fall. But I can pretty much assure you that there will be more Chickenfoot.
All right, good.
Because everybody definitely wants to do it. Everybody's definitely into it, and we have such a great time doing it.
Yeah, the Chickenfoot stuff is great. And also, you guys are kind of a one-of-a-kind band. I hate to call them super groups, but I mean, I guess that's kind of the best way to put it.
Yeah, you might as well. I mean, we try to call ourselves like a cult band or,
right.
or an underground cult type band or whatever, and everybody insists on calling us a super group. So I guess if that's what you got to call it, that's what you got to call it.
Yeah.
You know, we actually had no intention of doing anything like that. You know, it wasn't like we said, like Sammy and I said, hey, let's get a band together, but let's get Joe Satriani and let's get Chad Smith. It just so happened that we all, we've all jammed with each other at different times. Chad comes down to Cabo San Lucas, and I've jammed with him for years, down there with Sammy, when Sammy goes down there for his birthday in the fall. And we've jammed with Joe, and the whole Chickenfoot thing just happened when Sammy he played in Vegas. I don't know if you knew the story. Sammy was playing in Vegas with his band, the Wobblers, for a Super Bowl party, pre-Super Bowl thing, and he wanted to do something different for the encore. So he actually called Chad and myself up and said, "Hey, you guys want to come out? And, we'll blow their minds. We'll do an encore, whatever." And then while he was thinking about that, he thought, well, you know what? I'll call Joe and see if he wants to come play guitar. And that's all it was. That's all it was going to be. It was just us getting together. And, we learned a couple songs. It's like Rock and Roll by Led Zeppelin, the song Going Down. Just a couple standard songs that everybody knows. And once we got on stage, and, we went up there and we went over them really briefly during a sound check. We said, let's, what the hell, we'll just get out there and have a good time. And we had such a great time, and the crowd was loving it. That's when we said, wow, if we got the time, let's go in the studio and just jam a bit. And that's how the whole thing started up. No plans for a super group, It's just four guys having a good time. And we try to keep it away from this whole super group type of feel. Like I said, there's no one's got any money, ego for that, or there, no egos involved. It's just four guys having a good time playing music, and if that's not what it is, or if it turns into more than that, then we probably wouldn't do it,
Right. Now, what I was going to say is, like, even though you guys are even though we don't like to call it that, a super group, you guys, you guys differ than other super groups because you guys kind of sell out, like, big arenas and stuff, don't you? Because I recall a few years ago, on looking on your website, seeing some pretty big venues.
Well, not exactly. I mean, we hadn't really gotten to the arena stage yet. We played. We pretty much, when we went out, we played big theaters.
Wait, if I recall, you guys headlined Mohegan Sun.
Yeah. Well, we played up to. We probably played up to like 10,000 seats.
Okay.
When we went out, we went over to Europe and we played some festivals over there, which were obviously upwards of 100,000 people or whatever, and we didn't want to be that kind of band where we didn't want to go out and go, we demand to play arenas because this is who's in the band or whatever, which it's nice, but we wanted to earn that as a band. We didn't want to just go out there like four egos, because then if we're going to do that, then we might as well play some Van Halen, we might as well play some Sammy Hagar, whatever. And this is Chickenfoot. It's a brand new band, and obviously some people will love it right off the bat. Other people, it'll take a while to grow on you, and some people just don't like us,
Yeah.
So, so that's what we were hoping, that, as Chickenfoot progressed or whatever, that, we'll play bigger places and the demand will be there. But we didn't go out demanding that, we play the big places.
Right. Well, 10,000 seaters is still pretty big. So, I mean, especially in today's day and age. So what do you think differs Chickenfoot from some of those other, kind of supergroup bands that are playing little clubs and theaters?
Well, you know what? Because that's why they get together. They get together to try to do something big, sell a lot of records, play some big places. And at the end of the day, you all shake hands and go home with your saddlebags full of money, right?
Right.
Well, with Chickenfoot, we have no intention. We didn't have any intentions of doing that, and it wasn't like we were going to shake hands and say goodbye. We're all friends. I talked to Joe. I talked to Chad. I talked to Sammy. So like I just said earlier, that it wasn't a band that we put together a super group. This thing just kind of grew out of four friends jamming together. So, and I think that's what the difference is, and I think you can hear it in the music, or if you come to see us live, you can tell that we're not up there just all of us doing our rock poses and in our own space playing, that we're interacting, and we're really having fun as friends, not just as being Chickenfoot.
Hey, well, this is Miles DeShoe Schumann talking with Michael Anthony of Van Halen and Chickenfoot. And now, before we end it, because we're coming to the last few minutes, I just want to ask you, Michael, so you can talk about it. Don't you have a hot sauce company, and could you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, sure. I mean, this thing, the hot sauce thing just kind of grew out of, obviously, fans finding out about my love of hot sauce in the early to mid 90s. I had fans bringing hot peppers and salsas and stuff like that, and giving to me at our shows when we'd be on tour, because they knew that I loved hot sauce. And people were always asking me, "Hey, why don't you make a sauce of your own? You know, you're into it so much." And actually, before I could get a chance to do that, Joe Perry came out with his, from Aerosmith, his Boneyard Brew. But now this was just something, actually we came out with it in 2004, and it was just out of, I met some people actually at the NAMM show in Anaheim that were good friends with the company. They're called Mike and Diane's Gourmet Kitchen, that actually makes my hot sauce. Their logo, which is a big chili pepper with a sombrero blowing a flame out of his mouth, I love that logo on their bottle, and I put a tattoo of that on my forearm. And when they found out about it, they gave me hats and shirts, and because I really like their hot sauce too. And I didn't want to, when I decided that I'd like to do a hot sauce, I didn't want to just go to some company and have them slap my name on a bottle of something they make and say that it's Michael Anthony's sauce.
Right.
I wanted to be in on the ground floor, with the taste, and have a say in everything. And this company came to me and they said, "Hey, we'll do a sauce with you, and you can help develop it with us and whatever." And I don't know a lot of the scientific things and what needs to go to make any kind of preservative or not, or do what, but I know what I like in with a taste in a hot sauce. And so we worked it up, and I'm really proud of it, only because it is something that I helped create, and it wasn't something that I just slapped my name on. And unlike Sammy, who really took off with his tequila and whatever, I wasn't looking to become a millionaire selling hot sauce. I just thought I'd do it for fun, and it kind of grew into a little bit more than that. But I'm really having a lot of fun with it, and it's great. It sells great. We've got a couple other ideas of like dry rubs and stuff like that in the works right now. So yeah, it's just something I have a lot of fun with.
All right, cool. And how can my listeners find out more about it? Like, what's the best place to go to find it?
Probably the easiest way to find my hot sauce is by going to my website, which is madanthonycafe.com. www.madanthonycafe.com.
Awesome. Hey, Michael, it's been awesome talking to you today.
Yeah, it's good talking to you too, Miles.
Thanks a lot, Mike.
Okay, no problem, dude. Take care.
All right, bye. All right, now before I go on to my celebrity guest co-host for the night, Mr. Teddy Zigzag Andreadis, it was supposed to be Lita Ford, but unfortunately she is sick, so she can't join me, so disregard anything you hear in this next little segment about Lita joining me after. But I have Mr. Kevin Dugan joining me, who's Lita Ford's tech and Michael Anthony's tech, and he's been with Michael forever. For how long, Dugie?
33 years.
33 years.
I've known Lita. I met Lita when she was 17, when she came through Cleveland and played the Agora with the first Runaways tour. And we've been friends for a long time, although I haven't seen her in about 20 years, up until 2 years ago. We hooked up, and Lita asked me to go on the road with her, which has been my great pleasure and adventure. You asked me earlier what the difference is between working for Michael and working for Lita. Well, one is somebody told me to say that I can use the same bathroom as Michael, but that's not it. well, the biggest difference is with Lita, I'm doing, it's a smaller group. It's more like a close-knit family, whereas working with Michael, there's a large-knit family. But with Lita, I'm the entire back line. I do everything, and especially when we travel, I'm the only equipment guy. Whereas with Michael, I'm usually in a larger band scenario, whether it went from Van Halen to Chickenfoot to working with Sammy and Michael. There's usually a larger crew, and I'm usually just taking care of Michael. But a lot of times I'm the crew chief too, and whenever I do that, I automatically take over certain things like loading the truck, and on a few tours I've co-stage managed. So there you go. That explains a lot right there.
How do you kind of balance your schedule between working with Michael and working with Lita?
Well, actually, Michael made that easy because Michael took a year off after raising his kids and living in his one house for 26 or 27 years or something like that. When his kids grew up and moved out, him and his wife moved to a condo they had down in a beach town, and then they bought their dream house, and they spent like 10 months renovating it. So So during that time, Lita was on the road, that Michael took that time off. Plus his oldest daughter got married, so he put a lot of time and effort into that. So that kind of added up to almost a year and a half of time that Michael was basically inactive. I mean, not completely. So that gave me a lot of time to go out with Lita. And it also gave me the time to go back to what I do when I first met Miles, the gentleman interviewing me, which is being one of the production people at the Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp, which is one of my favorite things to do these days.
That's right, and I'm going to be seeing you at one of those in a few weeks.
That's exactly right. I will be there with bells on or whatever, with my tuner and tools ready to go.
I'm excited, and if people don't know, I'm a bass player, and so it's always fun when I'm at a camp or something with Dugie, and I get a chance to kind of experience what Michael gets to experience, which is having a tech as great as Dugie.
My pleasure.
I just wanted to ask you, because Michael and I were talking about the whole situation where the Van Halens replaced him with Wolfie and didn't really tell him. He found out over the internet. Did anybody at the Van Halen camp ever try and get you to tech for Wolfie, or did they know that you were loyal to Michael and wouldn't do that?
Well, actually, I got a call from somebody, and I believe it was their, he never identified himself, because when I asked him to, he hung up, but I believe it was their production manager at the time who called me and asked me if I was interested in doing the tour, even though Michael had been let go, and I said, no, at this point, I think that the whole thing was handled, very poorly.
Yeah.
And that's all I said. And I said, by the way, do the Van Halen brothers know that you called me, and who is this? And at that point, he hung up, So, I mean, I've been told, no, that never happened, but of course it did happen. I got the phone call. So
right.
I think they were curious to see if I would stay, even though they fired Michael, because I was the crew chief for 29 years. I would like to say this and go on record and say I'd like to see it happen one more time for the sake of the fans. I think the real reunion should be done with Michael. They could have Wolfgang play keyboards or something, but have Michael and Dave and Alex and Edward do it one more time. I would love to see that happen.
I agree. And Michael and I were talking about getting Sammy there, too, to have both Sammy and Dave do a set, kind of a reunion thing.
Well, that would be incredible. That was always my idea. I mean, they come out on Encore and they do Soul Man, Sam and Dave, right? That's
that would be amazing.
An old soul song before you were born. And I thought it'd be really cool on the Encore to bring Gary Sharon up just to sing harmonies,
Right.
I mean, truly represent every era of the band. But to do a tour with Sam and Dave, it would be for their fans. It would be such a magnanimous gesture on their part. I would so love to see that. That would really show the fans that they do care about them for one last run,
Yeah, I completely agree. Well, Dugie, this had to be a really quick thing, and I want to thank you so much for coming on. But as always, Dugie, great talking to you, and I'll see you in a few weeks.
You got it, my friend. All right, Miles. I'll talk to you later.
Bye, Dugie.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much to Mr. Kevin Dugie Dugan for talking to me about Lita and Michael. And now, as I was supposed to have Lita on for the show to finish out the show as my celebrity guest co-host, right before I was supposed to record it, I got a call from her publicist saying that she is feeling under the weather. She's sick, so she's not able to do the show. So I'll have her on in a few weeks. But as a fill-in, I have Mr. Teddy Zigzag Big Bad Andreadis from the band Guns N' Roses, best known for Guns N' Roses, calling in, filling in. So thank you so much for joining me in this tight spot, Teddy. How are you doing, man?
It's my pleasure there, Miles. What's shaking, man?
I'm doing good, Teddy. Happy to have you on. But you can voucher for me because you were the one that helped me get Lita booked in the show for the first place. That I did originally have her booked for the show.
I know.
Well, anyways, Lita will be on in a few weeks, but I want to talk some Guns N' Roses with you. Have you heard Guns N' Roses lately? Any of the Chinese Democracy stuff, or like any of the live footage?
No, I mean I've seen footage. I mean, it's very weird for me. I was only a sideman of the band. I mean, but I was in the band 2.5 years, so I have mixed emotions about it because it's like it's the really great musicians that are in the new Guns N' Roses, but they're playing Guns N' Roses songs, which are great songs. So you're having really cool songs played by great musicians. So of course it's going to sound great,
But it's not Slash and it's not Duff and Matt. Right?
No, and that was the beauty of that band. they were, weren't that great of musicians back then, but have become great musicians now over the years. But that was the beauty of those songs. They're playing them kind of a trashy kind of way, kind of street trash, but playing them with conviction,
Right.
And because this is songs that they had written, so you could see it with, every night it was 100% with those guys. Not that the new band isn't, but it all comes down to the songs. Those guys in the new band wrote the songs, except for, of course, Axl. But so you're just kind of playing someone else's music. Now they do play stuff in the new records. I haven't heard it. I mean, I've heard bits and pieces of the new records, so I really can't comment on any of that stuff. So.
No, did you play on Use Your Illusion 1 and 2, or were you just
I toured on that album, but I played on the live era double CD, you see, and I played on some minor tracks on the Spaghetti Incident, and then went on to play with every record after that anybody in that band recorded. I played on all their solo records. I was the only keyboard player because they couldn't use Dizzy,
right?
Because Dizzy, obviously, with alliance with Axl. So
right now,
and still, I mean, I've never actually spoken to Axl, which is kind of a unfortunate situation with me because I really like the guy, but because I chose Slash, because Slash brought me in the band. And because him and Slash don't get along, therefore, I'm out of his circle.
Oh, okay. So we probably won't be seeing you on any current era Guns N' Roses tours then.
Well, not any current, not in the situation the band is in now, unless they they already have two keyboard players. But I mean, I still see Dizzy, and matter of fact, I played with his band Hookers and Blow. It was about maybe 6 months ago. They did a show, and it was the first time. It was the first time that Bad Obsession had ever been performed. With numerous members of Guns N' Roses.
Right. That reminds me. I'd wanted to ask you about this. It's such a famous piece of footage of you playing Bad Obsession on harmonica in France in 1992, I believe, with Guns N' Roses. So can you tell me a little bit about that? Because, that's such a huge part of the song, is that specific video where you're playing harmonica on it.
Boy, when I hear that date, it just brings wow, 1992. Holy smokes. What is that, 12 years now? Oh, my God.
12 years?
No,
that would be 22 years?
20. You're right. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Jesus. Okay. I wasn't very good in math.
Neither am I. My math teacher will tell you that.
Holy Christ. That was a pay-per-view in Paris for, I believe it was HBO, maybe. And I think Lenny Kravitz is on the bill. Now, I'm not sure. I thought Steven Tyler and Joe Perry were, but I'm almost positive Lenny Kravitz is on the bill with us. So we did Mama Said off of his record and something else. I can't remember. But I remember rehearsing for it, and I remember the gig. It's in daylight, right? You could see the audience.
It's in daylight, that's right.
It's really weird because that band was so visual with lighting that it was really odd not to be able to use our lights.
Right.
So, it's fun. To us at that point, that was early in the tour. We still toured for another year after that, so the band kept getting better and better, and it was good. I always thought that they were a really great live band. When the band was on and there was nobody walking off the stage or there was nobody too drunk, when they were on, they were untouchable, literally. And Axl Rose, one of the best frontmen when he's on. Obviously nobody says these things, obviously, but it's okay. It's long enough time has gone by. One of the greatest frontmen, when he's on. When he had a beef or something, wasn't that much fun.
I'd imagine. Can
you know what I mean?
I don't know how much you can really tell me, but can you Did you ever get in any kind of sticky situation with Axl at all while on tour with them?
No, nothing sticky. I mean, let's see. In the, I remember sitting in the dressing room right underneath the stage as the stage was being torn up in Montreal when the gig with Metallica, where James Hetfield walked into the what do you call it, the flash pot, and he burned himself, and it was up to the band to kind of take over, right? So they came on earlier, and Axl was having voice problems, and he chose to kind of not finish the show out, so they just proceeded to destroy the place. And I was downstairs kind of hiding in one of the dressing rooms with just me and Slash just sitting there, and he walks in, and I was like, oh boy, here we go. And he just kind of plops down right next to me, all huffing and puffing and going, God damn it. He goes, they're going to blame me for this. And I'm like, well. He goes, I can't hear myself. If I can't hear myself, I can't fucking sing,
Right.
And I'm like, well, I'm going to leave you guys. So I just got up and walked out.
Yeah.
But he was very nice. He was always very nice to me. I think more so because I was a piano player, and he was the one that wanted to start adding keyboards to the sound. And and Slash, who was vehemently against keyboards, and he was my friend first, believe it or not, but he had no desire to add pianos and stuff to the sound of Guns N' Roses. Yet Slash will tell you, he goes, well, if I'm going to add anything, I'll add Teddy, that type of thing, because I can do many things. So I was like a maintenance guy. I could play harmonica, I could play the guitar and sing and play key. But so with much trepidation, he hired me. But again, I think that's why Axl liked me, is because I was a piano player. He would. Here's a great story. He wouldn't do this too many times, but he would always wake me up, like late at night. He would have one of his security guys come to my room, and the guy, there'd be a knock at the door, and I'd answer it, and Earl would be there or something, or Ronnie, and they'd go, he wants to see you. So I go, now? It's 3:00 in the morning. He goes, yeah, come now. So I'd go, put my pajamas on or whatever, my pants and shit, and I walked out of his room, and I walk in. He'd obviously have a suite. He goes, come here, I want to show you something. And he wanted to show me a big white grand piano that he had brought up to his room.
Oh my God!
Like,
to his
big
to
white
hotel room.
They had ordered it, and he said, "Hey man, play it. I want to hear you play it." So I'd play a bunch of stuff, and he'd kind of, cruising around, smiling, and.
Right.
And then about after 15 minutes, he goes, man, that was great, man. Pretty cool, huh? I go, yeah, this is awesome, man. I'm going to go back to sleep now, if you don't mind.
No.
So stuff like that. But he was very generous. Every Christmas, he would take us all out to the, what's it called? It's the famous steakhouse in New York, the Sheep's Head, or the...
I don't know. I'm not very familiar with the New York area, to be honest.
It's a very famous steakhouse, very famous. And he bought band and crew, and everyone dinner.
He would do that every year?
Every Christmas, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, a few years ago, when I was talking with Michael Anthony earlier in the show, we were talking about Van Halen's induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and how some of the members of Van Halen didn't show up. And obviously the same kind of thing happened when Guns was inducted, where Axl and I guess Dizzy was inducted too. Axl and Dizzy both didn't show up to it. And Izzy Stradlin didn't either. Now, I think it would have been really cool if they had done something kind of celebrating, because Use Your Illusion was such a big part of their career, having you go up and play Bad Obsession. And I remember after they got inducted, you made some post on Facebook. I don't exactly remember what it was, but it was kind of something about you and the induction ceremony.
Well, it was, they only... there's certain guidelines that the Academy over there, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, has, and they only took it up. They only took it up to the Use Your Illusion album. So really, Gilby shouldn't have been inducted either, when you think about it. But he was in the band, the rhythm guitarist. But we all did the tour, and we should at least been invited. That was my own. I don't have to be up there on stage with them, but I should have at least been invited. It was the only tour that they did, the Use Your Illusion tour, and I was a part of that for 2.5 years, and I was a big part of it. And you'd think that management or somebody was to listen. We really should at least have them in the audience. There was the girl singers, there was the famous 976 horn section, the girl horn section.
Yeah,
I mean, they were all part of this time in rock and roll history. So it would have been nice just to have us there. Just to kind of you pan, but nothing. It's like it's like, really, guys, nothing. I mean, all that work I did, and I don't begrudge him for it, but I just felt let down because I went out to tour with Duff McKagan. I went to tour with Slash. I was with Slash's Snake Pit. I was the lead singer for Slash's Blues Ball. I did all of Gilby Clarke's records. I even played with Izzy on the opening. We played the opening of the Hard Rock Hotel. It was me, Duff, Gilby, Steve Stevens, and Seal, I believe it was, and we opened and Izzy, and we opened up the hotel.
Wow.
It was a big rock concert. Yeah, it's on. You can see it on. There's clips of it on YouTube.
So
I mean, I've done a lot.
You've been such a big part of the band's history, so I mean, it would have been right if you had at least been invited to the induction ceremony, even if you weren't going to be inducted or go up on stage with them.
Exactly.
No, you.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead. It's fine.
They have certain rules and guidelines, and I think they were being inducted for the first record, not for the Use Your Illusion record.
Oh, okay.
They were being so.
All right.
And that's why Adler was there and Matt Sorum.
Right. Now, you were also in Alice Cooper more recently than Guns N' Roses in like the early 2000s or so.
Yeah.
And Alice was inducted into the Hall of Fame not too long ago too, but I think that was only the original Alice Cooper band.
Yeah, it was.
So we only have like 5 more minutes left on this, but can you quickly tell me a little bit about touring with Alice and why you left the band after a few years of playing in his band?
Well, you know what? I love playing with Alice. I love those songs, and now I kind of I don't regret leaving, but I regret not being able to come back. I mean, not that they're not going to add keys, but what happened was it was about 2 or 3 years I toured with Alice. Loved playing those songs. Oh my God! And you know me, Miles, and staging. And how much I like to stage things.
Yeah.
So playing with Alice Cooper was a really, really great thing, really fun thing for me. After we did Brutal Dragon Town and Brutal Planet, and we did one more record, and then he was kind of going into a more punk rock vibe. He wanted more of the garage rock thing. So I thought, you know what, this would be a good opportunity for me to go do some other B3 stuff with like because I was thinking about getting into more of the country vein. So I joined Billy Bob Thornton's Boxmasters, and toured with him for like 6 years. And Alice has yet to have hired a keyboard player. He just likes it. He likes the whole guitar thing sound.
Uh-huh.
But everybody says to him, because man, we really, miss the keys and some of these songs. So, but you never know. If Alice asks me to do it again, I definitely would, because I just love that music. I know we're doing the next Gene Simmons camp at the Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp, and Glenn Sobel will be one of the counselors, who is Alice's drummer now.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, Glenn Sobel will be one of the counselors, and as a matter of fact, Orianthi was at the last camp.
Yeah, I heard about
the
that
2
one.
camp. She was with the Joe Perry camp. She was there.
And so when you get to meet current members of your old bands, like I've had Bumblefoot on the show, and I saw a picture of you and Bumblefoot at a Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp, and obviously Orianthi was there. Is it ever weird to meet people that are currently in bands that you've been in the past?
No. They know who I am. I mean, I've shared an elevator with DJ Ash, but and he's always like, "Hey, Ted, man, what's happening, man? Nice to see you,
Right.
blah, blah, blah. So they know who I am. But no, I love Bumblefoot. I saw Bumblefoot at the Grammys. Saw him backstage. We were at one of the food lines together, one of the party lines. And so no, we become actually great friends. Bumblefoot, I love that guy because he's very unique in what he plays. He plays a fretless guitar.
Yeah, he
I don't know
does.
if you knew that.
Yeah, I've met him
Yeah,
a few
fretless-
times and had him on the show before, and he's a really nice guy too.
Yeah, couldn't
He's
be nicer. Couldn't be nicer of a guy. And we get along great. We've stayed in contact. I stay in contact with all the guys. Nobody, I don't have a really bad word to say about anybody. I would have really liked to have stayed in contact with Axl. That's the one thing I really regret. That he's so protected that it's so hard to even get a text or phone call into him.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to, say, man, listen, I wanted to thank you for all those years, that I was in the band. And after we left the band, after the band broke up, I never heard from him again. Between you and me, I never understood why he would never show up early. I mean, show up on time for the gigs. I mean,
Right.
these kids are sitting here, the ones that bought your records.
Yeah.
Why would you do this to them?
Oh, I completely agree.
And once I joined the band, you know me, Miles, you've known me a long time. Everything to me is, there's no filter with me.
Oh yeah.
So I come in the band and I'm like, what the hell's with this guy? And Slash would always say, Ted, just settle down, have a drink, settle down.
Yeah,
everything will be fine. And
real quickly, hold on. We're actually coming to an end here, but since you just said that unfiltered thing, I want to tell a little story that I have with you, and I'm not sure if you'll remember it. A few years ago.
Let's keep it going, man. Let's keep it going. I don't mind.
Oh well, I'd love to, but this is only an hour-long show.
I can do it for 1 hour, no problem.
But anyway, so back to my story. One of the first times I ever met you, I got a Rock and Roll Fans Camp 2011, I think. We were at the House of Blues, and I remember specifically you said you yelled into that crowd, "Is Eric Singer of Kiss here? Can Eric Singer raise his hand, please?" And so just being the little kid that I was, I rose my hand, and then you looked down in the crowd and saw me with my hand raised, and you went, "You're not Eric Singer. Put down your hand, you little shit." And that's my first impression of you, Teddy.
Well, you see, there you go. It did its job. You'll never forget that.
Well, anyways, Teddy, I pretty much got to end the show now, so I just want to thank you so much for filling in for Lita on the show, and it's great talking to you as always, man.
My pleasure, Miles. You've always been a good pal.
Hey, you too. Thanks a lot, Teddy. I'll see you later, man. Man, that brings me to the end of my debut show on the CMS Radio Network. I've had a blast talking with Michael Anthony, a true Hall of Famer and legend. His tech, Dugie, who's been a friend of mine since I was 11 years old and always been somebody I looked up to. And then also Teddy Zigzag Andreadis, who we just talked to, who I've also known since I was 11 and has always been very helpful to me. And all these guys are just so great, and unfortunately Lita Ford couldn't come on the show as planned because she was under the weather. But before I end the show, I just want to let all you new listeners who don't know me know who I am. I am Miles the Shoe Schumann. You may have heard me on the Classic Metal Show when I had that little feud with Chris and Neely, as a lot of people do, of course, but mine came out on the good side, and now I'm broadcasting on their radio network, so how about that? Anyways, let's go ahead and look at the next few weeks. Coming up next week, because tonight I'm going to the Jeff Tate's Queensryche show, and I'll be interviewing Jeff Tate. Funny enough, my interview with Jeff Tate is the one that Chris and Neely first did their whole thing on and started my little feud with them. But Jeff Tate, I'm going to be interviewing Jeff Tate and probably some of his band members tonight at his show, and that'll air next week. Following that, I'm going to have Mark Rivera from Billy Joel, Foreigner, and Ringo Starr. Yes, I go back to the kind of more classic rock stuff too. And then my show after that will be announced. So that's what I have coming up for you guys in the next few weeks. I am Miles the Shoe Schumann, 14-year-old rock and roll radio host. Before I end the show, make sure to go to Rock and Roll Gangstar Apparel, which is rockandrollgangstar.com, to find the coolest rock and roll clothes and accessories. They are the main sponsor of my show. And also make sure to go check out my favorite charity, which is Rock for Recovery. That's rock4recovery.net, which is a warrior music therapy program for soldiers and wounded warriors, linked up with the Wounded Warrior Project, and do a good thing. Go check them out. So rockandrollgangstar.com and rock4 recovery.net. As always, this is Miles the Shoe Schumann. Find me on Twitter at Miles the Shoe and on Facebook, facebook.com/Miles Schumann, MILESSCHUMAN. I'll see you next week. Thank you so much. Rock on, everybody. This is The Shoe 2.0.